We didn't look just across the causeway. We went worldwide.
This has to be a really special Mardi Gras because it brings back the memories when the causeway froze over. So a special thanks to the commitment, the passion, and the focus on bringing back a quality cultural and community celebration. And the rest is history, as we say.
That is the basis of this whole story. Even the arches, historical precedent. It wasn't just somebody crazy thinking, oh, let's just throw up some arches and get some press. It had a historical basis in Galveston. I'm Dancie Ware. I'm a fifth-generation Galvestonian, born and raised on the island, and so Galveston is a very important part of my heritage.
There was no Mardi Gras in Galveston for like 40 years, stopped in the 40s, and what was the deal with bringing Mardi Gras back?
Well, it was a really big deal to bring it back. I want to certainly give credit to individuals who were having smaller parties of their own. Old clubs like the Artillery Club consistently had Mardi Gras celebrations for their members. Groups of Galvestonians who were interested, small groups who were having neighborhood parties, neighborhood parades. The momentum was starting to build. We need to bring back Mardi Gras. And of course it took the heft, really, of the support of Cynthia and George Mitchell, who said, we need to bring it back now.
Today, Galveston hosts the third largest Mardi Gras celebration in the United States, drawing in over 350,000 visitors to the island every year. Mardi Gras celebrations in Galveston go back to the 1850s, with small private celebrations and masquerades. But those indulgent celebrations started happening in the streets of Galveston in 1871, with citywide Mardi Gras parades and festivals. Much like New Orleans, Galveston's Mardi Gras was a huge draw for tourists. And the celebrations were so big and expensive, by the 1880s, Mardi Gras crews began to cut back on the extravagance. These celebrations continued until World War II. The war effort led to resource shortages, and large public celebrations were scaled back or canceled nationwide. So you may not know that these massive citywide celebrations we have today had to be resuscitated from dormancy.
A number of years prior to 1985, there had been, I'd say, some local news percolating around the island that why can't we bring back Mardi Gras? There were a number of individuals who had private parties and private dances and even a street dance in the efforts of trying to rekindle some interest. But it was with the impetus and the generosity of Cynthia and George Mitchell that it got off in a big way. And I had been working so closely with them on all of their historic restoration projects that they didn't want to just have a parade. They didn't want to just have a ball. They wanted to be all-encompassing because the real goal was actually an economic one. Mm-hmm. And the goal was to bring back a midwinter celebration that would attract tourists, fill the hotels, also get people interested in the historic Galveston. That really played the backdrop quite well to how to bring back Mardi Gras in a grand fashion. George Mitchell often said, and I have a quote from him, saying, we don't want to just do Mardi Gras, we want to create the golden age of Mardi Gras. And I certainly believe that was accomplished. That's it.
Look at that. Wow, and this is in Galveston?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I've never seen this photo before.
I hadn't either. In the early days when we were just talking about bringing Mardi Gras back in a grand way, I certainly believe that it's all based on history. And the key is authenticity. Now, we don't want to go and just replicate what New Orleans did or what Mobile, Alabama was doing with their Mardi Gras. Our Galveston Mardi Gras had to have a real basis on the way it originally was, at least from my perspective and the Mitchell's perspective. So months and months of research resulted in learning about the original cruise, learning about the night parades. So I'm in the Rosenberg Library with a fabulous curator by the name of, a researcher by the name of Casey Green. And this was all part of the lead up to the revitalization of Mardi Gras. I spent so many hours there and combing through old invitations and articles and photographs of the origins of Mardi Gras Galveston back from the 1800s. I came across a photograph that intrigued me. It was a stereopticon photograph, which means you have to look through the little lenses to get the full effect of the 3D effect. And I said to Casey, I said, this is Galveston. This is the Strand. What is this? So it appeared that there were ceremonial arches to me in the photograph, much like you'd see throughout Europe when Napoleon would return from a victory that construct a famous arch. And he explained to me that they were constructed when they hosted Sangerfest. Now remember, Galveston was a gateway to the South, and so immigrants came from all over the world, but it was a very strong German population, just as there was an Italian and Greek and so forth. This group from Galveston who participated in the German song competition in New Braunfels won, and the prize was that city would then become the host city 2 years thereafter to host the statewide competition. So Galveston went all out. The temporary arches were constructed to celebrate. So here we have historical precedent, basis of what this was all about. And so here we were moving into 1986, the sesquicentennial of the state, and so I thought, this photograph can be replicated. I had already had relationships with some of the greatest architects in our country because I've always had a fabulous interest in architecture. It's a big part of my DNA. And every of these notable architects were willing to design and are willing to donate all of their images, all of their drawings, everything, and the maquettes, but with one proviso. They had to be built. Look at these designs. This is Helmut Jahns, and this one was in front of, he was from Chicago. It was the most expansive, and so it was the most difficult to be constructed. Now, Cynthia and George Mitchell loved the idea, and of course, they were instrumental in putting up all the support to getting Mardi Gras rekindled on a grand fashion. And all along, it was Cynthia Mitchell's encouragement of me to make it as artistic as possible. The architects was yet just one more element of that. And this is one I know you're familiar with.
This is amazing. Oh my
this one
goodness.
remains, it's the only model that remains today. Till today, people talk about the great Galveston arches. And I think it's because so many thousands and thousands of people interacted. The goal was to have these great ceremonial arches and then to bring the public in. And so instead of just walking down sidewalks and looking up and seeing a 3-story arch, they commingled with the arch. Baby carriages went through it. People stood and were photographed before Instagram. Just think today what it would be like. This was Aldo Rossi.
Look at that.
He had a sense of magical in his mind. He had a headpiece that matched his art, and he wore it at Mardi Gras. And so he wanted lighthouses because he wanted it to have the port feeling. And so this one was quite popular. Then we moved on, and the arches were so successful and had received such attention nationally and internationally. I approached with the director of that time of the Galveston Art Center. His name was Bill Robinson. And Bill introduced me to a phenomenal woman at the Cooper Hewitt of Design, which is the Smithsonian's National Museum of Design in New York. And I brought this type of book with all the drawings and the sketches and photographs of the maquettes. And I said, would you be interested in ever exhibiting any of this work? And it took about 24 hours, and she said, absolutely.
Wow.
So all of this had to be shipped to New York. The models, the maquettes, the architect's vision, and it was displayed at the Cooper Hewitt, which is the National Museum of Design in New York, for about 3 months, and the exhibit was called Arches for Galveston.
Wow.
It was a wonderful exposure for the island. That was another part that I think is interesting, is how do we incorporate, not just to stage an exhibit, but how do we bring people into historic Galveston? So that was all part of the original plan, is to engage individuals and attract people to Galveston and learn more about the island. So rather than doing exhibits in an open tent or in a parking lot, we had all of the exhibits in historic buildings. And that drew them in and raised the level and also attracted more people to come and restore buildings in Galveston. For 10 years, I focused a great deal of energy, along with my staff, from the arts, the culture, the performing arts, the visual arts, every aspect. The great Galveston Arches program, all of that was really intended to stimulate the economy and to attract people to the island, and also to get the local community totally embedded in bringing it back in a big way. Every year the theme had to be different. So this was Carnaval do Brasil. So all of this is cut paper.
Look at that.
It was a real popular one. Yeah, this was, Asia was a beautiful year too, Mask of Asia, also using cut paper, same glue.
Look at, oh my goodness.
We love the international things because it lent itself to food, to the culture, to music, to art, to costuming. And that's what part of it was. Costuming was a really big part of getting this off the ground.
Yeah.
If it was just simply wear a pair of jeans and a baseball cap, it wouldn't have had the magic that gave Mardi Gras Galveston its sort of jump start. Of course, George being an astute businessman, he was always interested in ways to rekindle interest in Galveston and to attract people. It was all part of the greater good of how to build up Galveston as not only a destination, but to create an economic driver. And Mardi Gras indeed did that. There's no question that it stimulated interest in the Strand and the historic district of Galveston. More buildings were being populated, more people wanted to live in Galveston. Some people would even buy homes on 25th Street just so they were on the parade route. In fact, you can see realtors who promote that saying, on the parade route for Mardi Gras. So Mardi Gras indeed has had that kind of an impact.
What is your one favorite memory from the time you were involved in those early years of getting Mardi Gras back up and running?
There'd probably be two. One was standing in front of the Tremont with my parents and seeing the illuminated night parade roll by, because they're both Galvestonians, so they remember the Mardi Gras. And everybody was just in awe, literally. Thousands and thousands of people everywhere. The city kept saying, where did all these people come from? And so, the city was overrun. You've seen the photographs. And then the next, of course, moment was the arches. Not only in Galveston, but seeing the arches at the Smithsonian. And because it was all about Galveston, it wasn't my name up there on the highlights, it was Galveston.
Yeah, doing it for your city, for your island.
Go back to something that was authentically Galveston and then take it to a different level. And that's what we did.
These arches were built to be temporary. Some lasted a few months, but others lasted decades. But this one here, the Powell Arch, standing for nearly 4 decades, is the last remaining of the 1986 Mardi Gras arches. Standing is yet another reminder of Galveston's international and multicultural influence. And people like George and Cynthia Mitchell and Miss Dancie Ware, along with countless other people, are yet another example of how Galvestonians reinvent, reinvigorate, and revitalize the island's community and economy after inevitable events like storms and war. Without the efforts of these Galvestonians back in the 1980s, my question is, would we still be waiting for someone to bring back one of the largest festivals and economic drivers to Galveston Island today?